What is up, you guys? Thank you for tuning in to this video. I actually have a pretty cool one for you guys today. This is my dad's 1966 Chevy El Camino. He's had this thing forever, and pretty much what it has in it is a mildly built 327. It's got cam, intake, headers, carb, and some heads on there. And a while back, we actually swapped the transmission for a 200R4 instead of the factory 2-speed Power Glide. So it's had some upgrades to it, but we're going to toss all that out of here. We're going to rip it out, and we're going to put a nice L59 5.3 LS in there along with a 4L60E transmission. Alright guys, so here's the 327. We got an aluminum radiator in here as well. We're going to keep this when we swap it, but everything else is getting ripped out. You can see, I mean, it's seen better days. It was painted at one point and all pretty nice once it was in there, but you know, the header's rusted, and he actually just got this air cleaner a little while ago. But this is the car I pretty much learned to work on cars on, so it's kind of cool that I get to do another big upgrade to it, and it's going to make it super drivable. So pretty much the problem he's been having with this is once we moved to Washington from California, it hasn't really run correctly. It sat for a while, and you know, the carb got gummed up. We cleaned the carb, we messed with the timing and stuff, but we just cannot get it running correct. We've been around LS's for a long time, so he knows how reliable they are and how easy they are to install and get running perfectly. So he's finally made the jump to put an LS in here. Yeah, so I'm actually really excited to rip this thing out and put the 5.3 in. Let me go ahead and show you what 5.3 I got. Alright, so this is the 5.3 liter truck engine that I got yesterday to put in there. So this is actually an L59, meaning it's a flex fuel motor. The flex fuel injectors are actually a little bit bigger than the other ones, so that's good. It's upgradable at least. And we got some of the good coils that Chevy made. And I'm going to be making a harness for this, so I'm going to be cutting all these wires and shortening stuff and just getting rid of the things we don't need. Well guys, you saw it here. We got the small block out of the El Camino. I think that is going to be all the work we're going to do today. I got a bunch of parts coming the beginning of next week, so right now it's Thursday. I should get all the parts by Tuesday. So then we'll be able to mount the LS in there and do all that. But for now, I'm going to redo the wiring harness on the LS and also track down all the wires I need in the El Camino, like the starter wires, the temp sensor, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, this engine's been in there forever. I don't think it's ever been out of it. My dad bought it in the 80s from the original owner, and I don't think the engine's ever been out. Trans, like I said earlier, it's a 200R4. We swapped that, but it's kind of cool. Some of those bolts never been touched, probably. Alright guys, just like on the Montero, I'm going to be doing my own harness. I'm pretty much pretty far through this already. I just have to remove all these wires here. Now, if you guys are also doing the swap, I highly recommend that you also at least try doing your own harness. It's super easy. Go to lt1swap.com. He tells you every pin to take out. He has like 6 hours worth of videos of him doing it, pretty much step by step. So highly recommend you guys do it. Cuts out a lot of you're just making a standalone harness pretty much, and it costs like 10 bucks. I know it looks kind of messy over here. It kind of is, but just all I'm doing is pulling out each one of these wires. I'm finding out where it goes and in the harness here and what plug it goes to, and I'm cutting it out. I'm getting rid of actually a lot of plugs here, which is kind of nice. Just making it a lot smaller. Alright, the harness modification is complete apart from All I need to do now is add a fuse box right where all those pink wires are. There's going to be a little 4 fuse and 2 relay box right there, but everything is all cut out of it, all the stuff I don't need, and this is the big bundle of wire I ended up with. Don't need any of that. So that's how much you cut out. Just got a whole bunch of stuff from the UPS guy, all for the swap. This is almost everything that I need. The only other 2 things I need is my oil pan. I bought it's kind of a knockoff Holley 302-2, which should fit totally fine in the car. It's almost made for it. And I also need to either get some shorty headers or some F-body Camaro exhaust manifolds, and that should work. But for now, this is what I'm working with. This will actually get the engine in the car and running, which is kind of cool. Of course, I need the oil pan. I'll probably have to pull the engine back out to put the oil pan on, but that's besides the point. So starting off over here, electrical stuff. This is what this is my fuse box and a bunch of relays. So I really only need 2 relays to run the engine. Then I need 1 more relay to do my TCC solenoid, so my torque converter lockup solenoid. So when you press the brake, it unlocks the converter. That needs another relay for that. And then I got a bunch of fuel line, like 20 feet of it. And then I got these engine adapter mounts to adapt the LS to the small block Chevy. Pretty easy. They're basically just knockoff ICT billet mounts. They're like 26 bucks. And then an inline 300 liter pump. Alright guys, the whole harness is pretty much done. So all I need to run the engine now is this wire goes to the fuel pump, this goes to a key hot, and this goes straight to the battery. So that's pretty much how it is. It only uses 4 fuses, and it'll run great. It'll work perfectly. It has a fuel pump relay and an ignition relay, and that activates all the fuses and stuff. 1 key hot, or 1 hot all the time fuse on here. It's pretty simple once you get to do it. This harness is actually a lot cleaner than the other one I made for my Montero, just because this is the 2nd time I've done it, and I don't have to deal with any of the 4-wheel drive stuff. So it ended up being a lot cleaner. Alright guys, I got the old sending unit out of the tank. Now as you can see, there's only one, it's just the feed line, and then the new one I got has a feed line and a return line, which is going to help because the LS, at least the LS we have, is a return system. So yeah, you can see that real well. It's got everything it needs. It has this ground wire, has the actual sending unit wire thing, and then a return and a feed. Now here's the old one. I highly recommend you take these out, because I mean, I think this one's been in there forever, but look at this sock. that's pretty bad. Yeah, so it's a good thing we took this out. Couldn't use it anyways. Alright, I got this bracket made up. Don't make fun of my TIG welds. I just started doing this. It was a little too hot here. These ones aren't the worst ever. But yeah, so this is the bracket. It's going to hold the fuel pump. So you could just buy a bracket too, but I figured I'd make one just because it took me like 15 minutes. Yeah, so it goes in there like that, and this will get a couple of screws in it there, a couple of bolts, and I'll rubber mount the fuel pump in there. So that should be good. And then this is so long because so the gas tank is basically right here, right? Let's get it like that. The gas tank's right here, and I want the pump to be below the gas tank, and the closest thing I can mount it to is up here somewhere. So it's basically just a long bracket. I still got to cut it up here because I don't need this, but I'll cut it up here and it'll bolt to the support above the gas tank, and that'll bring the pump below the fill, below the inlet where it's pulling from, or the outlet, I guess. So that should just make it easier on the pump, make it last a bit longer. My dad also painted the whole inside here, inside the engine bay, gloss black. We're actually going to go grab a Grand Cherokee steering box for this. His is leaking and stuff, and the Grand Cherokee box is like an upgrade for these. It's a 12.7 to 1 instead of like 16 to 1 or something that the El Camino is. Should help quite a bit, and it's pretty cool that it bolts right in. It also has metric power steering pump fittings on it, so the LS fittings will actually bolt right up to it. There you guys can kind of see how I mounted this. Here's the outlet of the tank, and then the return right here. The outlet's going to go from here right into here. Made this aluminum mount for it. I tech screwed it into this cross member here on the bed. It's actually very strong. Yeah, pretty happy with how that turned out. You can kind of see how it's a bit lower than the outlet of the tank, which that's what the pump company recommends. So it doesn't put too much stress on the pump trying to lift it out of the tank. You can see I have zip tied the AN line to the factory feed line, which is now my return line. It actually turned out, looks pretty good. I'm not really worried about the AN line wearing through or anything. I am a little bit worried about the zip ties breaking. I'll probably put 10 more of them on there, but pretty happy with that. It's tucked up in the frame, should be pretty good. You can see my AN line comes up right here, the passenger footwell. Yeah, it comes up the passenger footwell area, and yeah, it's tucked up. I don't think it'll get in the way of the header or anything. Here's the throttle pedal rod. You can see it sticks out pretty far, so that's idle and then floored, and that's just too much of a movement. So I'm going to convert that to a cable and probably run a cable through the firewall back here somewhere, and yeah, it should wrap around nice and come to the where it needs to go. Got the fuel pump wire all wire loomed from the back all the way to the front right here. Okay guys, let me give you some answers for this. Okay, so when you put these engines in A-bodies with the truck harness or the truck accessories and everything, the stock power steering pump pulley will hit the steering box. So there's a lot of mismatch on forums and stuff, and if you're doing this cheap, you kind of want to get everything at a junkyard, everything you can at a junkyard, you know, especially since these are all factory parts. Usually at a junkyard you're getting OEM parts, but so this is off of a, let's say, 95 to 02 Chevy Camaro with a 3800, a 3.8 liter V6 in it. To get this to line up with all the other accessories, you need to overpress it by about 3/16 of an inch, as well as space the pump towards the engine about 1/4 of an inch. So I just used a couple of crush washers in between the bolts here. You do have to get slightly longer bolts because the ones that they put in it are just long enough for it not spaced out or anything. So you do have to get new bolts. You might have to get a new belt. This is I don't know, I might have to get a new one since this is a little bit smaller pulley. Now one thing with the smaller pulley is that it's going to be spinning faster than the larger pulley, but it's not that much of a difference, and I don't think you'll have a problem with it. A lot of people use Dorman, the Dorman plastic one, and a lot of people have had problems with that. They explode and stuff. But this is all steel, and it should work perfectly. And I know there's a lot of people in the forums will give you part numbers and stuff. They're like 50 bucks, 60 bucks or whatever from Rock Auto. But at the junkyard I got this and a few other parts for 20 bucks. And this is just as good as one I order off Rock Auto, but I can get it today. Also, if you guys are doing the Jeep Grand Cherokee steering box modification, it's not even a modification, it's just a direct swap in. So this is from a 92 to 98 Jeep Grand Cherokee. This is from a 98, and to mate this to the A-body steering column, you need a C10, a square body C10 or C20, I believe, rag joint and link. And again, I went to the junkyard, got this throttle cable and the pulley for 20 bucks. So pretty happy with that. I think they'll work perfectly. You can go buy a brand new one; they're like 50 bucks. But I wanted to just get this thing working. This is a pretty good. It's in pretty good condition. Still malleable, and it's not brittle or anything, so that's good. And there's tons of C10s in the yard. I think this was off an 86 or an 87. So yeah, 77 to 86, I believe. Maybe not 87. Something like that. Square body Chevy truck. Okay, I got this hard line all plumbed in. It starts down there, and I use like a coupling and stuff in there, and just a 3 feet piece of hard line all the way up. And that's for the return line, so it plumbs into the factory
fuel line. But yeah, so it goes right out here. You can see it. So pretty much the fuel system's done. I do have to get under there and plumb it to the tank, but that's not hard. I'll show you guys how I'm going to do that in a second. Alright, so the fuel setup is complete. Let me do a little rundown for you here. So we got our pressure line. It's going to suck from here, through here, into the pump. Out the pump is all AN line all the way to the engine. And then it comes back on this line. This is the return, which is the factory feed line. All I did was grab a piece of 5/16 fuel line and I shoved it over this 3/8 hose that actually fit perfectly. That comes into our return line on our tank. Don't read this. It doesn't matter. It's good for 50 psi, which hopefully the return is not holding 50 psi, but who knows. It's about 1.5 feet of rubber line, not a big deal. Alright guys, let me show you the difference between the fake Holley 302-2 pan and the regular truck pan. So you can see the main difference, and the only real difference, is how much more low profile with the 302-2, as well as it takes its 2 step downs. You can kind of see that, and it has a very, very low profile front end. That's for the tie rods to go, whereas with the truck pan or an F-body pan, they'll actually hit right here. So this looks to be a pretty decent casting. I don't think I'm going to run into any problems with the pan. So it came with all the bolts and stuff. It came with a 2-bolt flange for the oil pickup tube, which is nice, O-ring and all that stuff, and gaskets and all new bolts. So I'm going to go ahead and use all that stuff, and yeah, that's pretty much all we need to put the engine in the car. To get the pan to fit, you have to cut the front of this windage tray off of here. So yeah, I just cut the front section off all the way to the second set of bolts here. I trimmed the back part of the windage tray where the bolts go on just a little bit. I don't know if I had to do that. Maybe a little bit. I think it hits the pan just a tiny bit. Well guys, the engine is in. I didn't record a whole lot of it just because I'm a little bit sick. But yeah, it was a lot of moving around and prying and wedging to get everything to go in at once. Let me go ahead and show you the mounts and how I mounted it to the car. Alright, so right here you can see this is that $26 knockoff ICT billet plate here. Stock small block Chevy mount, the stock frame stands from the El Camino, and all I did was space it maybe a little over 1/2 inch, or just about 1/2 inch. I used a nut and a washer, a big nut. Did that on both sides, and let me show you the clearance on the pan. I don't know if you guys can see it in there, but there's about 3/16 of an inch in the back on both sides. The engine's actually mounted where the stock small block Chevy would mount, exactly like down to the 1/4 of an inch pretty much, and everything fits right now. I have the trans dipstick tube in there, that fits. We actually set the hood on it, and it looks like the hood fits, which is pretty impressive. Power steering fits here, and the alternator, I don't know if the alternator fits below the hood, but that's just something we'll figure out. He wanted to get a 2-inch cowl hood anyways, but it'd be nice just to leave the stock hood on it for a while. Now the headers are actually going to be pretty tight, so you can see I barely get my fist in between here. I got S10 shorty headers, so hopefully they fit. I'm waiting on them to come in. Shipping's been really slow lately for whatever reason. But yeah, everything else fits. I actually got the stock shifter to work. That was pretty easy. Alright, so this is how I mounted the S10 pedal. I used some 16 gauge, well, 1/16 of an inch thick steel over there and kind of bent it up and drilled holes through the firewall and stuff. I welded nuts on the inside of the firewall, but you can see full throttle, and this tilts because the S10 pedal is actually like this part, so it's really low. You have to either mount it super high up in the firewall or just do this, and it works perfectly. That's full throttle. I still get movement, so perfect. Works great. Alright, so we're inside the car here. What I'm actually going to do, probably optional for a lot of guys who maybe, I don't know, maybe get different mounts or mount the engine forward a little bit. I am actually going to trim out a pretty big section, probably like that, all the way down the trans tunnel. And just weld it in a little bit bigger because my trans is hitting right there, and This is the only reason I'm doing this is to get a good driveline angle. So right now the engine is pointed down about 6.5 degrees, and the the axle in the back is tilted up almost 4 degrees. So about 2 degrees difference there. It's really not that big of a deal, but this is a pretty long drive shaft, and the longer the drive shaft, the more perfect it has to be. So just to make this thing have no problems going down the road, I'm actually going to trim out a bunch of this. And if you guys can't weld or don't have a welder, you could probably pop rivet it back in. I might actually do that just so it's easier to take out if I ever need to get to like these lines or something back here. Yeah, so I'm going to trim out a pretty big chunk of that. Alright guys, the engine and trans is fully mounted in the car. The car is fully supporting the weight. Still needs to settle in the front because it's got to, you know, roll back and forth to really settle it all. I actually ended up moving the small block mount back on this adapter plate, which means the engine moves forward. Probably about a little, maybe 5/8 of an inch. And that gave me a little bit more clearance in the back for the trans and stuff, and I was able to get the dipstick tube in there a little bit better. I'm still waiting on some headers to come in. I hope those fit. There's really no way to know right now, but we'll make them fit. This is how I did the trans mount. This is just a piece of angle iron right here that's welded to the frame, and it bolts to the stock cross member. Now I'm not sure if this is flipped or anything. I don't remember how it was when I took it out, but I made it. I put it in here so it would work. Don't mind these little tack welds and stuff. I'm going to fully weld it. Just wanted to get a good idea how it's going to sit. Alright guys, so I'm going to show you how I do my trans lines. So I get these, it's a 1/4 inch NPT male to female. So this male threads into the transmission. This is definitely something you want to do before you put the transmission in. This is pretty much how I did on my Montero. And yeah, unless you cut a hole in the floor, then you can do it while the transmission's in. So pretty much you're going to screw this all the way in, and then you're going to screw this hose barb into it, and you can run some hydraulic or some trans line from here. And yep, that's how I did it on the Montero. It's been perfect so far, no leaks or anything. I am going to use some Teflon tape on this fitting into the transmission, but since this is brass to steel, you shouldn't need to because the brass will flex a little bit. But yeah, Teflon tape on this, not on the other fitting. Alright, small change of plans. Actually not going to run this clutch fan because it hits my intake right where I want to put the intake tube. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab a Taurus fan or something from a junkyard. And it's super easy to wire in a fan relay and have it run through the factory computer. So it'll come on at 200 degrees or something. So that's just a slight change, but we got the power steering lines hooked up. The throttle cable's hooked up. I got the fuel lines hooked up. This little heater core rework is hooked up. You can see my AN lines here. I got this quick connect for the pressure side. Goes over the brake booster line here, and it goes back. I have this little tiny, I thought it was bigger when I ordered it, but this little tiny filter here. It's a 30 micron. They're pretty cheap, so if I need another one, I can grab another one. I'll probably put a bigger one in line, probably closer to the pump, but for now this should be fine. Alright guys, I'm putting the front clip back on. I need to put the radiator in so I can test fit this fan. I just picked up this fan. It's out of like a 93 or 94 Plymouth Voyager minivan, and it's just a big 16-inch single fan. It actually fits perfectly on my dad's aluminum radiator, so I'm going to wire it in just so it has a high setting only. Alright guys, we're pretty much on the home stretch right here. I'm waiting on my headers to come in, but more recently I have started this to-do list. This is everything we need to do. I got my transmission lines done, my torque converter, lockup solenoid done. I have the intake is fully done. I made a bracket for it. My radiator lines I actually just finished. I just need to get a coupling for it. I'll show you right here. That joint right in there needs an actual radiator coupling. I'll grab that tomorrow. Got to put oil in it. And the rear end, we actually went and bought this today. This is a It's a factory 8.2 10 bolt, not the strongest thing in the world, but it bolts right into where this is, and it was pretty inexpensive. It has a 336 posi in it, which is nice because what's in the car right now is a 273 open. So with the 200 R4 it used to have, it would shift into overdrive at like 80 miles an hour. So the 336 is going to help a lot, and it should cruise at like 70 at 2,000 RPM or so.
That is going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you for tuning in to part 1 of the LS swapped A-body 1966 El Camino. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to check the link in the description. It'll be linked to my Instagram if you guys want to follow me and kind of see what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. If not, make sure you like and subscribe. It helps a lot. Super cool seeing the channel grow, and we'll continue to do cool stuff like this. So tune in to the next video. We're going to have this thing running and on the road.